Slauson Malone dropped an album last year which garnered quite a lot of attention and critical acclaim. It was interesting to see such a really odd, scattered, sample-heavy album which was very all over the place in the way that it was designed, gained such a huge amount of attention. It was cool to see. This sound collage type stuff doesn't tend to gain that type of momentum, really. I mean, there are the odd exceptions here and there, but Slauson Malone seemed to do really well for himself with that album. I didn't do a full video on it. I just talked about it a little bit in a roundup video. It didn't really engage me. It didn't really get, sucked into the world of what the album was attempting to achieve the way that many people did. And there were some great reviews out there about that album, so I just kind of left it for the people that were really, really passionate about it to talk about it, because, there's no point in me just coming on camera and explaining why I didn't like it, because he wasn't really that big of an artist at that point. There was no point in me just doing that kind of review. And to be honest, it's that kind of music that I think can really just absolutely sweep you off your feet, or it just does nothing for you. I feel like there's really very little room for middle ground with this kind of sound collage type stuff. So it's not really that surprising that someone wouldn't like it, and it's not really that surprising that someone would absolutely love it. But this EP here is quite significantly different, and the reason why I wanted to talk about it was because I actually am enjoying this a little bit more than the album last year, which is surprising because even this kind of really somber, low-key type acoustic stuff sometimes doesn't really interest me much at all. And I feel like usually you need to have something really interesting about you as an artist to engage me, but somehow this here is actually appealing to me on the ears. There's this beautiful amount of delicacy just brimming at the seams of this album, like the acoustic guitars that are really, really soft throughout are absolutely to die for. Listening to some of these tracks, there's just so much beauty just seeping out of it, and I just can't help but appreciate what Slauson is doing here. The vocals throughout are extremely tender. The way that Slauson is just so open with his emotions from track to track, I just admire a lot. And some of these lyrics at times can be a bit vague and a bit abstract, and you can't really latch onto anything really in regards to what he's saying sometimes. But that reminds me of the album from last year as well, where you couldn't properly latch onto things. It kind of just felt a bit all over the place and a bit messy. But this time around, it's that similar sort of idea, but in a lyrical form, which kind of draws parallels between both releases when you think of it that way, because this time around we're getting more of a voice, a vocal entity coming through, whereas on Quiet Farewell there wasn't really much like that. The first couple of tracks have this repetition of the question, are you scared, which seems to be this insular question, focusing on himself, questioning himself. Is he scared? And he could be talking to someone else, but when you kind of read the lyrics throughout, it definitely seems as though he's trying to cope with something. He's definitely trying to reason with himself in regards to something, kind of face his anxieties, his insecurities, or his traumas head on, and just do whatever he can to deal with it. No more drama, no more trauma, as he says on the opening track. I just feel as though the way he presents his voice, just really interesting. He just has this really kind of calm, really oddly reassuring voice throughout, which is strange because obviously a lot of the lyrics don't really sound reassuring, but there's just this kind of like dichotomy between what he's saying and how he's saying it, which I kind of find interesting. And some of these tracks sort of like, manipulate the vocals, and there's this kind of like weird scattered sampling going on, just like you would expect from this kind of artist. It reminds me a little bit of something that James Blake would do, which is really weird, but I guess in terms of the way that they are incredibly delicate with their emotions and their vocals, it shouldn't be that surprising really, because these two singers do have similarities when you think about it like that. The beautiful instrumental track, I feel, in the middle is absolutely gorgeous, and I just want this to go on a little bit longer. Some of these tracks are really short, by the way, like it is only 24 minutes. It is an EP, to be fair, But tracks like this, I just feel like could continue on and on and on for way longer. It reminds me actually of Earl Sweatshirt's Some Rap Songs, where the final track, Riot, just has this absolutely stellar sample, and I just want it to go on for way longer than it does, and this is another example of that. I love the guitar plucking on the Message 3, which is a really good track. I really like how the track is recorded here, like the way the guitars are very crisp, the vocals are really up front and center. Look, the quality of the songs here are definitely there, even if like I say, sometimes the lyrics are just a little bit vague. And if I'm gonna nitpick as well, I guess the, sort of structure of this is so similar throughout. Like once you get one song, you kind of get the similar things on each track. It's definitely a repetitive EP. I thought the lyrics and the writing on the closing track might have been the strongest here though, where he says, "Darkness in my smile, shadows in my speech, thunder in my tongue, lightning in my teeth," which I found really interesting, how he kind of like linked those things together and brought in the thunder and the lightning. It's certainly one of the most revealing tracks on the album, I think, where you're just getting a little bit more detail in the words that he's saying, rather than, some of the other tracks which are a little bit more straight to the point with the lyrics, sometimes even a little bit more vague, like on the Massage 4, which just is really hard to decipher, to be honest. Reading into those lyrics, it would just felt a bit mumbly jumbly. But at the end of the day, even if there are flaws here and there, and again, some of the tracks are very similar in how they sound, I wanted to record this review because I liked it, and I'm interested to see where Slauson Malone goes from here, because again, it doesn't really feel like the exact same thing we got last year, and I just personally enjoy this EP a little bit more than what we've gotten from him in the past. I'm curious to see where we go from here. I enjoy this. Hopefully you enjoy it too. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching this review. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Tell me what I should review next. Have a good day. Subscribe if you haven't already. And goodbye.